Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OK Bigfoot Radio. It is February 27th, 2017, and we are almost at the end of February. I just can't believe that. But anyway, we're all really glad to have y'all out there listening tonight and welcome y'all to our show. Tonight, it looks like it's just to be me and Lauren. Jeff had a death in the family, and he's not going to be here tonight. So our prayers are with him. Know how hard it is that we just went through that. And so anyway, Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I've got a nasty cough just getting over bugs, so I hope that I don't hack up a lung while we're talking. But if I do mute myself and forget to unmute myself, well, then you'll know what happened, okay? Anyway, really, I don't have anything to share. I went and saw a movie that was very, very interesting, very controversial. It's called Is Genesis History? And what really surprised me is that, they have it a one-night showing. And I figured no one would go see it. It was kind of like a Christian movie sort of thing. I figured there'd be a handful of people there. It was standing room only.
Oh, my
God. And they had 2 theaters. Yes, I could not believe there were that many people. And it was a very, very informative and interesting, but it was mind-blowing at the same time because, as a child, I was always interested in science. That was my favorite subject. And all through, even in college, I chose science subjects as the extracurricular. So anyway, it flies in my face, a lot of things that these scientists on this show are trying to prove. So I never believed in evolution. I don't believe in evolution, but they tried to say that the Earth was not as old as scientists believe it is. So that was where I had the issue. Excuse me, let me get a drink. Oh, man.
Yeah, buddy. Well.
But anyway, if you get a chance to see it, it is really an excellent movie, documentary actually. So, but anyway, Lauren, are you ready to bring on our guest? I am.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this guy because he is from Oklahoma, and we don't get to talk to too many people from our home state. So I'm really, really excited. I think we've maybe had 2 researchers in the last 7 years from Oklahoma. So
yeah, they just
anyway,
they're not as plentiful as the northern states, or the East Coast states. It seems like. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and read that bio, and then we will bring him on because I just cannot wait to talk to him. He was telling us a little bit before the show about some of his experiences, and we had to go ahead and stop him so that he could tell them on the show, but it was really hard. I kind of wanted to just not start the show for another half hour and listen to him. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you all a little bit about him, and then we'll bring him on and let him wow you with his stories like he did us. Night Colors Bigfoot Radio presents Chuck Schlabs, oh my God, I'm going to butcher that, of Chasing the Beast Radio. Chuck is 47 years old and resides in Oklahoma. He got hooked on Bigfoot when he was 8 years old when he saw the film Sasquatch, Legend of Bigfoot. Chuck had his first sighting in November of 2015. In February 2016, he went on his first expedition in the Sam Houston National Forest. He's recorded a lot of audio and has found rock and limb structures and has casted tracks. He's spent numerous hours in the woods and river bottoms near his home and goes out at every opportunity. He has had multiple sightings of the elusive creature. Chuck is the host on the radio show on the Cheyenne and Arapaho Radio called Chasing the Beast, just OK Bigfoot. Chasing the Beast is their Facebook page. Chasing the Beast also has their radio broadcasts on there for people to listen to and can be found on YouTube.
Awesome. I didn't know, I even wrote that and I didn't even look that I could go over there and listen to the broadcast. But that's great. That is great. Okay. We're going to go ahead and bring Mr. Schlabs. I think this is how you say your name. Is that how you say your name, Chuck?
It's pronounced Schlabs.
Oh, Lord, I butchered that.
I did too. Well,
Sorry
welcome
about that.
to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. We are so happy to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I've had a couple days of the flu bug, I think, but I'm just about over it. But let me tell you, it's an honor and a pleasure to be on your show. That's for sure.
Oh, it's an honor and a pleasure for us to have you. And I feel a little nervous because you are actually a real radio host, not a internet radio host.
You're giving me way too much credit. Way too much credit.
Well, I feel like I need to step up my game, So. Well, 8 years old was awful young for you to get hooked on Bigfoot.
It was. When I was 8 years old, my mom would allow me to pick out a movie at the theater if I wanted to go see one, and she would take me. And of course, she wouldn't let me go see any R-rated movies at that time. But the movie Sasquatch: The Legend of Bigfoot came out, and for some reason, I was drawn to the movie, and I went and watched the movie. And the thing that got me the most during the movie was the two encounter stories that they told. Most of the movies that are out there, it's for money, and they want to sell their movie. But the two encounters that they told the story about Ape Canyon and the gold miners that were there up by Mount St. Helens, and they also told the story of the two trappers that Teddy Roosevelt knew. And I come away from that film, it just ignited an interest in me of the subject. And the funny thing is, I thought, if I grow up and I ever want to see Bigfoot or something like that, I'm going to have to go to the Northwest to see him. Never really thinking at that time I lived in Texas, and so I never really thought that Texas was a place that you could find them. And even when I moved back to Oklahoma, I never thought Oklahoma was actually a place to find them. So, but anyway, when I was 8, after watching that film, I bought every Bigfoot book I think I could find growing up, and reading accounts, reading stories. I read John Green's book, The Apes Among Us, and learned a lot from that book. And of course, with time, you get into your teenage years and stuff like that. And of course, I started thinking about sports and athletics and academics and girls and all that stuff. And I kind of drifted away from the whole Bigfoot stuff. And I would have to say that my interest kind of peaked back up when, and I hate to say this, but when Finding Bigfoot came on TV. I
always give credit to Finding Bigfoot. A lot of people put that show down, but let me tell you what, it enlightened the United States. Well, it enlightened the world. Woke them up a little bit. And, yeah.
I think so, too. I think it's done a world of good of piquing people's interest into the subject matter. So I owe a lot to that show because it actually got me back interested in the whole Bigfoot phenomenon. And I back in, I think it was 2013 or 14, they actually came here to Oklahoma, And I went to the town hall meeting, which was a pretty amazing event because I bet you there were 1,000 people there, which really shocked me. Of course, I am thinking, well, what are these guys doing here? What are they here in Oklahoma for? And
exactly.
why are all these people showing up for this town hall meeting? I was shocked. And I got to speak with all of them. And the thing that kind of sparked my interest at the town hall meeting, guy that showed up, and he had a 16-inch casted print. And I got to talking to him. I said, "Where'd you get this?" And come to find out, it was only about 15 to 16 miles from where I live, and that was a real eye opener for me.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I really got interested in the subject again and started. Of course, by then the internet was full blown into talking about encounters and sightings, and I read a lot of encounters and come across a bunch of encounters here in the state of Oklahoma. So I thought, this might be a good place for me to be because they are here. So from that moment on, I always kept my eyes open, and back in 2015, I think November of 2015 is when I had my first sighting, and I was always, like I said, I've always kept my eyes open. And interest peaked, and this particular time, I worked for a water hauling company in the oil field, and at this time I was working nights, and they sent me to a location. I'd been there hundreds of times, never had any kind of weird experiences, never saw anything or anything like that, but this location is north of me about 15 miles on another river. Kingfisher is a pretty awesome spot because you have a river to the north of me that's about 15 miles and a river to the south of me, which is about 15 miles. So there's a lot of creek bottoms and river bottoms in this area. And so this particular location I went to was on the river up north of me. And my dispatcher sent me there to do a job, and I got there. And it was just starting to get, the sun was just starting to come up. It was about 6:15, 6:30 in the morning. And I pull up on location, and I get out of my truck. And when I get out of my truck, every hair on my arm stands up.
Oh.
Huh. And I thought immediately, something's not right. And I looked around, didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything, and I thought, well, maybe, I've worked all night. It's about the first or second day of deer season, and maybe there's a hunter nearby or something, and maybe I'm just tired and overreacting. So go ahead and stop me if you got any questions or anything.
I will. I'm notorious for interrupting my guests. You can ask all our listeners.
Okay.
But go ahead. You're doing marvelous.
So once I experienced that, I went ahead and started doing the job, and I climbed back into my truck, and I was sitting there doing paperwork, filling out the paperwork for the job. And out of the corner of my eye, I see movement. And I look up, and probably about, I'd say 30 or 40 yards from me, standing right in front of me, peeking around a tree, I see this charcoal-colored face peeking around the tree at me. And
how far are we talking here? How far away from him?
I was probably 30 or 40 yards from him.
Okay.
Black hair surrounded his face. And I froze, and I reached down and I grabbed my phone. My phone was there, and I stuck it in camera mode and snapped a couple pictures. And I put my phone down and sat there and stared at it for, seemed like forever, but I'm sure it was probably only for a minute or two. And it never moved. I never saw it blink. I never saw it move. I never heard anything. And so as I sit there, I begin to think, well, I have to be hallucinating. I have to be really tired because I'm seeing things now.
Mm-hmm.
And so
you could still see its face the entire time, and it didn't turn away from you or anything, or hide its face behind the tree?
Never turned away from me, never pulled back behind the tree. This area where it was standing was real thick with brush and thickets and stuff like that, and it's right on the river, so the land there is really, really sandy. And I just, I thought at the moment I thought, well, maybe I'm just seeing things. And like I said, it never moved. I never saw it blink. I never saw anything. And it was like it was frozen, just staring at me. I mean, it was staring at me, face, looking at me.
Yeah.
So I, me thinking that I was hallucinating about it, I thought, well, I'm going to finish this job. So I get down out of the truck and put all my tools away and stuff, and I get back in the truck, and I'm getting ready to drive off the location, and I look up, and it's not there.
Wow.
It's gone. And I knew right then what I'd seen. There was no doubt in my mind. And heck, I'm getting goosebumps now just talking about it. But I was so excited. I'm the type of person that if I have an experience like that or an encounter like that, I want to tell everybody. I mean, after all, I've studied this since I was 8 years old, and I finally see one, and I'm just all excited about it. So I made the mistake of going to work that morning.
Oh no!
And telling the guys at work, and of course immediately they start giving me a hard time. But since after that experience, I wanted more. I wanted to see it again. I wanted to start researching because I knew that they were in this area, and funny thing is, since then I've found several encounters that have happened just right down the road from where I had my original sighting, and like back in 1996, there were 4 guys on 4-wheelers that were riding down trails, and one ran right out in front of them. So, I'm finding and learning things as I go, and I had the chance to go down to the Sam Houston National Forest and go on an expedition down there, and that was February of 2016. So just a couple months after I had my original encounter. And
did you have any? Go ahead, Lauren. I'm sorry.
I was just going to let you know, actually, one of the people in our chat that went on that expedition with you. He's here to support you. It's Tech Bigfooter. Is his
I know who he is.
Chat
he
name,
contacted me today. He's a heck of a guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's been a listener of ours for a really long time. So anyway, he is in the chat to support you, just so you know.
Thank you.
Also,
Thank you
to let
much.
anyone know out there, if you want to call in and talk to Chuck, the number is 347-989-0313. That's 347-989-0313, and press 1. If we see a question mark come up next to your number, we know that you are calling in to ask a question. Otherwise, we think you've called in to listen in. So, anyway, back to you, Chuck. How did it go in Sam Houston National Forest? I'm very curious. I have never researched down there, so.
I don't know if you know Bob Garrett and those guys down there. That's who
I've never met them personally, but I know them. Yes. Oh, that's who you went with.
Yes.
Okay.
And I got to know Bob and Tim Sermons and Mo Michonne and Javier and a couple of the other guys, and they're just super, super good people. And to be really honest, when I went down there, I was actually a little bit spooked because I thought, you don't know enough about this subject to go off on an expedition. I mean, that's what I kept thinking. And
right.
I went prepared, though, because I had all my camera equipment with me. I had got some casting material in case we found tracks, and I had went and bought a bunch of audio recorders. And I tell you what, it was the most incredible experience I think I've ever had in my life. Nighttime in the Sam Houston is so different from daylight. At 10 o'clock at night, it sounds like you're in a primate house at the zoo.
That's the way it is here at Angelina National Forest as well.
It is. It is. I have never, ever heard the vocals that I heard down there. It was truly amazing.
Wow.
And we got there. I got there on a Friday, and they took us around. We changed out some cameras and made sure the batteries were good in some of the trail cams and stuff that were out. And got back to base camp, and we all sat around the campfire and told stories and stuff, and that was really cool. And I'd went out probably 100 yards from where we were all camped and stuck some audio recorders out. And that particular night, this was on Friday night, we had a couple guys that kind of walked away from camp, and it was already dark, but they had their flashlights with them, and they were looking for tracks. And the area where they were walking, I just happened to have an audio recorder set up there. And as these guys are getting closer and closer to my audio recorder, you start hearing these, to me it sounds like clicking noises, kind of like a person would take their tongue and tap it at with the roof of their mouth. And as these guys are getting closer and closer to the recorder, this kind of speeds up a little bit. And these guys are walking closer and closer to the recorder, and they're talking back and forth, and you can hear them talking on the recorder. Then all of a sudden you hear this big old whack, and what had taken place was they had a great big huge piece of concrete thrown at them, and it landed, I believe it landed right in between the two of them, and it hit a tree and landed at their feet.
Good night.
And you can hear these two guys arguing with one another about, well, did you throw this? No, I didn't throw this. I can't pick that up. I've got a hurt back. And you can just hear them arguing back and forth on the recorder, and it's hilarious to listen to because these guys, they think somebody's playing the trick on them. But the next morning when I got up, I actually walked back to where that recorder was set up, and the state people had built fire rings out there to where people could build like little campfires and stuff. And one of the fire rings that I came across was busted up, and there was a piece of the concrete missing, and that's what was thrown at them. So,
wow. So it was how far from where it was thrown? Was it carried quite a ways?
No, it was probably from the fire pit to where it was thrown was probably, I'd say, 15, 20 yards. They were pretty close.
Okay.
And that night I got some really incredible vocals on my recorder. I got wood knocks on my recorder, some howls, some yells, some screams, and the audio, and to be really honest, when I went down there, my mindset was, I don't care if I have a sighting. I don't care if I find tracks. I want audio. The audio part of this whole thing interests me more than anything else because
I agree.
Audio.
I'm the same way. I've learned more from the audio than I ever could from a track or formations or, other than a sighting. But audio I'm an audio person too, so I totally agree. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. What's amazing to me, what I recorded that night is earlier in the night you can hear some howls, and it sounds to me, and this is just my opinion, the sounds earlier in the night I thought they sounded female in nature.
Mm-hmm.
They were real
high pitched.
Real high pitched. And then about, I'd say probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I've got about 3 minutes maybe, if that, of audio that to me sounds like males. And there's 4 distinct sounds, and I think there's at least 4 of them calling to one another. The sound is very deep. It goes from a real deep tone to a high-pitched tone, and then back to a deep tone. It's very interesting to listen to. But Saturday came, and we actually moved to a different spot. And I tell you what, those guys down there, they know what they're doing. They've been out there so many times, and they know what to look for. And this other place that we went.
Calls?
It seems like maybe I remember them doing 1 or 2, but for the most part, I mean, you didn't really have to do any calls down there. I mean, the calls were pretty much all around you at nighttime. And let me back up to Friday night. They took us on a hike. They have a gas line that runs through the park area at this one specific area, and it's like a fire lane. It's about 10 feet wide, and all the trees and the brush 10 feet is gone. And it's in case they have a ruptured pipeline or a fire or something like that. It's for that purpose that they take out this part. Well, they split us up. There was 10 of us that went one direction, and another 10 went a different direction. And as we were walking down through there, we had heard stories that even in daylight, people had seen them cross this fire line. And as we were walking down through there, we started hearing twigs snap all around us. And we walked down a ways, and I had Generation 3 night vision. Half the group had Gen 3 night vision, the other half had thermals. And as we were walking, the big thicket is a very unique place because the trees and the brush, it's like walls on both sides of you as you're walking down the fire lane. And we get to this spot that has it's kind of open, and I'm looking. I'm probably the second man in line, maybe the third man in line at the front, and I look over with night vision, and I see one, and he's on all fours, and he's sitting there. He's sitting there, and as I'm looking at him, he's moving back and forth, kind of like what a gorilla would do. And he's moving from side to side, just looking at me. And I was so close to this thing, he could have easily reached out and grabbed a hold of me if he wanted to. And even on all fours, his head come up to my chest. That's how big he was.
Oh my goodness!
And the guy walking behind me had a thermal vision, and I said, "Hey, I got something here," and he come up there with the thermal, and he got it on thermal too. So we both saw it. And about that time, some guys were on the opposite side of the fire lane that we were on, and they said, "Hey, we got something over here too." And so we had at least 2 of them in our vicinity. One was on my side, and one was on the other side of the fire lane. And our guide that was with us that night, he told us, he said, "Guys, we're going to have to be really careful because it seems like they're trying to flank us or surround us." So that was a pretty intense moment for me. And
how many out there were you? How many were out there? How many?
Well, there was about 20 of us that were there, I think.
Wow.
Maybe a few more than 20. A couple of people stayed at the campsite, and
I'm talking about out there on that fire trail. How many of you?
Oh, there was 10 in my group, and there was 10 in the other group that had went the opposite direction.
Wow.
So we went back to camp. Nothing else really happened. Next morning we got up and we moved to the second site that we went to, and Tim Sermons kind of walked back behind where we had set up our camp, and I tagged along just to see, if he was going to find anything, and lo and behold, we found tracks, and the tracks were probably maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 yards from where we were setting up all of our tents. And so we started uncovering these tracks, and we started tracing them. Tim actually found a track, I think it was 9 inches long, I believe. And Mo come back there too, and Mo found the big track, which was about 14 and a half inches long and about 5 inches wide. And I asked Mo when he found the track, I said, "Hey, do you mind if I cast this print?" And he said, "No, not at all." So I went and got my casting material and went out and casted the print. And as the day went on, everybody kind of split and went their own way, and went down a couple trails. Well, I was so cold, I didn't even prepare for how cold it was there. And my mindset was, hey, I'm going to be down by Houston, closer to the equator. It's going to be a whole lot warmer than Oklahoma. The first night we were there, it was 27 degrees. The second night we were there was 27 degrees. So by this time, I was freezing to death. And so Saturday, I kind of stayed at camp, and there was about probably 4 of us, I think, that stayed at camp, and 4 or 5 of us. And we kind of sit around the fire, and one of the guys down there that's a part of the group, his name is Waylon. Waylon is a drone pilot, and he's FAA certified, and he has a very expensive drone that he has that has cameras on it and everything else. Well, Waylon asked us, "Hey, you want me to get this drone up and see if we can see anything, and, see how it flies?" And we're like, "Sure, yeah, let's do it." So he gets his drone out and starts it up, and within a matter of minutes, we have activity around us. And
they were attracted to the drone? Yes,
to the noise of the drone.
That's crazy. Go ahead.
That's what I think anyway, because they were there. And one of the girls that was there walked up to me. I was kind of sitting at the campfire, and she walked up to me and she goes, "I just took a picture, and I want you to look at it and see what you see." And I looked at her phone, and she had actually captured one that was up in a tree, looking at us. And I asked her immediately, I said, "Where'd you take this? Where'd you take this shot?" And she pointed out where she had taken the picture. And at this time, I had a 35 millimeter camera with a 200 millimeter zoom lens. And so I went to the spot where she had snapped the picture, and I started looking. I zoomed all the way out and started looking, and I was kind of scoping the area, and all of a sudden I hit this face, and I see this thing blinking at me, and I know what I'm looking at. Right. So I snapped some pictures, and by this time everybody was noticing what I was doing, and everybody come running up there. Well, as soon as they show up and run up there, this thing takes off. I lose sight of it. So I'm still looking with the camera, though, and further on out, away from where this one was, I see another one, and this one was kind of unique. It was it had blondish brown hair, probably more blonde than brown, but it was in a tree, and you could definitely tell. I took some pictures of it, and you could definitely tell where he had his arm wrapped around one of the trees, and he was looking at us as we were all kind of gathering around there. And so at that particular time, some of the people that had went on the daily trail hike, they started coming into camp, and of course they saw us gathered around in the back part of the camp, so they all come running back there. So as soon as they all come running back there, this one takes off too.
Uh-huh.
But in the meantime, Waylon had his drone in the air, and he actually flew the drone over the area that we had seen them. And I never did see the footage, but Waylon said that he had actually captured video of what we had seen back there in the back. So it was a very exciting trip. I come back with a cast. I come back with photos. I come back with hours and hours of audio. That's just amazing. I still haven't went through all of it. But anyhow, that's kind of how I started doing stuff around here, and I've seen things here and found things here that are pretty amazing. So I'm hooked.
It sounds like you are. Well, how did you know anybody from Oklahoma that you could go out in the field with, or did you just head out there by yourself and gathering what you learned down in Sam Houston National Forest? Did you carry some of that back with you and start looking for your own research areas up in Oklahoma, or did you already have those set up? Okay.
Absolutely. There was a good friend of mine here in town, and I was telling her about my experiences, and her mom and dad actually own some land on the Cimarron River, which is north of me. And I asked her, I said, can I come out and look around? And she said, absolutely. And she looked at me and she says, we have found tracks out there. And I said, you got to be kidding me. She said, no. So I went out to her mom and dad's place a couple times, and we found some tracks out there. We started finding some small tree structures here and there. And from that point on, I just started doing some research. I learned about the casino, the Concho Casino area, and the video that was shot there. And
which nobody has seen, but a few people that I know have seen it and said it's authentic.
Right. I've seen the recreation of the video. I haven't seen the real video. I have been told I'm kind of in cahoots somewhat with the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe, thanks to a woman by the name of Lucille Emmerich. And me and her have become really close friends. And Lucille actually got me on the reservation there, and I got to talk to a bunch of the people there. And I was told that the video has been destroyed. But, I'm not so sure it was destroyed. I still think there's a copy of it or something around somewhere.
I bet there is.
But
I bet there is. Can you explain to anyone what the video is about on the casino footage? And after that, we've got a telephone call.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I apologize to the caller. I was not by the switchboard, so I did not see the call. But can you explain what the video was about? Didn't they capture it getting into a dumpster or a grease trap or something like that?
Well, the story that I've been told was about, I think it was about 2:00 in the morning, I believe. There was of course, the casino area has cameras all around it. And they actually there's actually a cafe in the casino, and they actually have a grease trap that's set in the back part of the casino area. And what I've been told is that a Bigfoot or Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, come walking across the parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they estimate that the height of this creature was probably about 9 to 10 feet tall, because it passed under a light that was in the back, and his head barely missed the light as he walked through there. And he went up to the grease trap and opened the lid and started digging stuff out of the grease trap, and turned around and walked off. And supposedly they got all that on the video, and they said it. I've even heard reports that particular video is better than what was taken at Bluff Creek by Gimlin and Patterson.
I know, I've heard that too. Yes. Yes. Okay, we're going to get this caller. Area code 918. Welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. Do you have a question for our guest?
Yes, I did. I'm from southeastern Oklahoma, and I have quite a bit of property down around the Comanche Mountains.
Okay.
And I've noticed tracks during the snow season when we got it, but a certain smell I'll smell twice, and then they'll just disappear real quick. If the wind's blowing just right towards me, and then I'll go and try and investigate, but then it'll disappear. And I don't know if you've ever smelt it or in your encounters, if you've encountered anything like that.
I have not, except for one time, and it was up around a place called Red Rock Canyon here in Oklahoma. What we smelt was kind of like a sulfur, skunky type of smell.
Exactly.
Never did see anything, never did hear anything. The smell hit us, and of course our instincts kicked in, and we started looking and looking things over, but we never did see anything, never did hear anything. But I have, from my research and talking to other eyewitnesses and stuff like that, that is a pretty common thing to smell the sulfur, skunky type smell. I've seen these things, I've been around them, but I have yet, except for that one particular time, which I didn't see them, have smelt that smell before. So.
Right. Well, I was listening to you. You said you were about 30 feet away from one, so I was curious if they had any kind of an odor or.
Right. I have not, other than that one particular time. And, and all the times that I've been out doing my research, and I want people to take this with a grain of salt, I have never, ever felt threatened. I've never had an aggressive encounter. Maybe I've just been lucky. But a lot of times, from what I understand and from what I'm gathering, is that when the smell is released, it's more of a nervous reaction to what's going on around them, that they release this smell to either drive people away or something like that. But that's just the conclusion that I've come to. I don't know that for a fact, but.
Oh, okay. Well, because I've got that smell like a couple of times, and I own a little bit of land, and I can walk back in there, and I've seen branches broke like 6-7 foot up, and like a little path, and I've been told, hey, they're marking their territory. You start seeing this. This is where, and then I've hit that smell, me and my cousin, and I'm just like, we don't need to be here. We'll get something, and I usually turn around and just leave the other way. So,
right. You know, where you got that land, it's beautiful country. That is some of the most beautiful country in Oklahoma is right around the Comanches, and I've researched in that area. And in fact, one time we stayed up on top of Lynn Mountain. Do you know where that is?
Yes, I know where that's at. And
okay.
Carter Mountain.
Yes, and that particular night, I never saw anything, but I got growled at. Of course, it could have been a bear even, because there are bears in that area, but whatever it was, I didn't want any part of it.
No, thank you here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for calling in. Are you there, Rick?
Yeah. I'm listening on Lauren's headphones.
Oh, are you?
No,
okay. Well,
that was a guy I work with. His name's Kyle. Me and him talk about the show all the time. He's known about us, but he hasn't really listened. And I finally told him how to listen and how to get on.
Awesome.
Me and him catch a whole bunch of crap at work about talking about the show when we're not supposed to be. And
well, I hope he's enjoying the show. But now, and Rick,
since he told me he's got on, he just keeps on listening like he's hooked.
All right. By the way, Chuck, I want to introduce you to my son-in-law, Rick. Rick,
hello, Rick.
How's it going, Chuck?
Yes.
It's going good, thank you.
Well, anyway, we're going to, Rick, if you've got some questions, hold on to them. We're going to go ahead and go to intermission real quick, and then we'll be back in about 4 minutes, 25 seconds. Welcome back, everybody, to Night Caller's Bigfoot Radio. Tonight, our guest is Chuck Schlabs of Oklahoma. He's also the host on Chasing the Beast Radio on the Cheyenne and Arapaho Radio show, or radio network. Chuck, are you back with us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can. Before I get started with you, Chuck, I just wanted to make sure that Rick didn't have any questions. Rick, do you have any questions for Chuck? I don't know if Rick is back.
Yeah, you've got him.
Back.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I hear you now. I apologize. I didn't. There you are, Rick. Do you have any questions for Chuck?
Yeah. When Kyle called, he was talking about the smell. Do you think that's like a cat? Like with glands, do they spray or mist? Or do you think it's more like humans where they sweat, or just like the muskiness?
To be honest with you, Rick, I'm not really for sure. My opinion is that these creatures have scent glands, just like other animals, just like we do. And I think when they get nervous or they think we're too close to them, they release, a scent that hopefully will drive us away or get us away from them. That's my opinion.
When you were saying something, I didn't catch it all. I got on just as Lauren was leaving. She had to go put the kid down. But you were saying something about Red Rock Canyon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know where that's at. I've been wanting to camp there for decades. I've never been up there, but I'd really like to go see it. What all did you catch any good stuff out there?
If you don't mind, Chuck, I'd like to tell everyone what the place is like.
Sure, go ahead.
It's a hilly area, and then as you go in, you're just going into this canyon, and it's just these red rock walls all the way around. It's U-shaped, and the walls are, what would you say, 25, 30 foot tall, maybe 50?
They're probably 30 to 40 feet tall, I would imagine. Okay. A lot of people go out there they do a lot of climbing and rappelling off the cliffs. That's kind of a hot spot to do that kind of thing out there.
Why don't you tell us about your experience there? It is near Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Okay.
I had first heard about Red Rock. I'm a big fan of the Outlaws, and I had heard them talking about Red Rock Canyon, and I decided to go out there and just kind of take a look around. And me and a friend of mine and my son and a friend of his actually decided we were going to camp out there. And I went out there, and I didn't know the trails really well at the time, and we started hiking through there, some of the trails that go outside the campgrounds, kind of out in the woods and stuff. And as we're walking down trails, I start seeing structures, and some of these structures are pretty unique in the fact that it's almost like a blind, and they're set 5 or 10 feet off the trail. It's like they can stand behind one of these structures and be totally not seen by people who are going up and down the trail. And I found quite a few things like that there.
Were they woven together?
Yes, they were.
Okay.
And all these branches are broken. They're not sawed. They're not cut by an axe. They are broken off trees. And in some of the areas out there, what was really unique that I found was they would build like a structure, like a wall to hide behind, and then they would take cedar branches and lay cedar branches on top of the broken limbs. And the cedar trees were not in the same vicinity as the structures were. So they were carrying in the cedar branches from another area and laying them, interweaving them into the branches that were stacked up there. And that's the first time I ever noticed that. It was like a perfect camouflage place for them to sit behind or stand behind, and you know, people walking up and down the trails would never ever even see they were there. And I even found one on the side of a cliff on one of the trails. This trail kind of winds back and goes to a pond, and on that particular trail up on the side of the cliff, there's one just exactly like that, standing at the base of the cliff, just probably maybe 5 or 6 feet down from the top of the cliff. And you can stand behind that. I've actually went up there and stood behind it, and you can see that whole trail going from one particular spot all the way to the pond. And I got up there and asked some friends to follow me, you know, about a little bit behind me, and they couldn't tell I was there. They didn't see me. And wow. It's the perfect vantage spot for anything to just stand there and watch, because, from everything that I've experienced out there, these things are very, very curious as to us and what we do, and they watch us. It's amazing to me how curious they are. I've had other experiences at Red Rock. I went out there one night and camped out, me and another gentleman, and I actually had a recording of the siren call that I think was recorded back in the 70s, I believe.
Yeah.
And so it was dark. It got dark, and there was people camping with tents all around us. And I went out there, and I have a boom box that I take with me every now and then, just for the specific reason of yelling out a call or two. And so I played the siren call, and of course I could hear people in their tents going, "What was that? What was that?" So I felt really bad about doing it. But within about 15 minutes, I got a response, and I was looking through my night vision, and the guy that was with me, he had a parabolic mic, and he was going one direction because he started hearing something coming down the cliff wall. And I stayed right at the tent and by the campfire, and I had my night vision. And about 30 yards behind my tent, I see this dark silhouette standing behind a tree. And as I take my night vision and start moving it up the silhouette, I finally get to the head, and this thing is peeking around a tree at me, and it's blinking its eyes, just like the one I experienced down in southeast Texas. Mm-hmm. And he's probably no more than 30 yards from me, if that. And what's funny is every time my infrared light on my night vision would hit its eyes, he would duck behind the tree. And I'd wait there a few minutes, and then he would look on the other side of the tree at me. He was going back and forth, and every time my light would hit him, he would dart behind the tree. And the guy that was with me, he recognized that I was looking at something. He come running over there as fast as he could. And when he got there, this thing took off like a bullet. I mean, it was gone in a hurry. But I sat there and looked at that I looked at him or her, whatever, for probably a good 2 to 3 minutes before it got spooked off. And then that same night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, we were awakened in our tents. This thing was going through the dumpsters. And you could hear the dumpster lid slam open. You could hear it digging around in the dumpster. Then the dumpster lid would slam shut. It'd walk in the park. They have the great big huge dumpsters, and they're set every probably 20 or 30 yards, I guess, apart from one another. And so when the door would slam on one dumpster, a couple minutes would go by, and you would hear it at the next dumpster. It was going right down the line of the dumpsters, digging in the trash.
And didn't care if it was very loud either.
Oh, it didn't care. I mean, it woke us up from sound asleep, and it was banging the lids. And what was funny is the next morning, there was a gentleman that was camped not just real close to us, and he come walking up to us as we were cooking breakfast and stuff, and he goes, "Did y'all hear those raccoons last night?" And I just laughed. I said, "Yeah, we heard them. There were some big raccoons, I'll tell you that." And there was no way a raccoon could have opened one of them dumpster lids and shut them like that was going on. We knew what it was. And then, I've had several experiences down there. The guy that usually does a lot of research with me and a lot of hunting with me, it was the first time he had ever been there, and he and his wife and I were walking down one of the trails, and it was in the afternoon. It was, I guess it was probably maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was a big storm coming toward us, and we were walking down the trail. I was showing him some of the stuff that I'd found, and all of a sudden we hear this growl. And it was a real deep growl, and it only lasted for like a split second. And we all kind of turned at each other and said, "Hey, did you just hear that?" And we're like, "Yeah, we heard it." And the strangest thing, this is the first and only time I think I've ever been hit by what people call infrasound. Yeah. I almost instantaneously, I didn't know where I was. And I've been on these trails quite a few times and had been up and down them quite a few times. I knew the trails. I knew where I was. But after I experienced that, I didn't know where I was. I was lost. I didn't know which direction I should go. And it was a scary, scary feeling for me because I've never felt that before. And, of course, the poor two people that were with me, they had never been down those trails. They didn't know where we were either. And we ended up, we got out GPS, got one of our phones and hooked up GPS and figured our way out of there. If we wouldn't have had the GPS at the time, I don't know, there's no telling what could have happened. But I've been in I've been down there quite a few times and had really good experiences. That whole area down there is very notorious for sightings and encounters. There's a place called Purgatory.
Yes.
That's really notorious for that kind of stuff. I've had experiences at Purgatory, and
tell us about your experience at Purgatory, if you don't mind, because I've had experiences there too, but I want to hear yours, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Oh,
go ahead.
I thought I was still muted. I've been having to mute off and on to cough, and I thought I was still muted, and maybe you didn't hear me, but go ahead. I apologize.
No, that's all right. Purgatory was a very interesting place. I tell you, the first time I ever went to Purgatory, this goes back a little bit further. I have a 13-year-old son, and he kind of likes that Dad's into this kind of stuff to some extent. And he had a vocal concert in another town, and I went to the vocal concert to listen to him. And then after the vocal concert, I said, hey, we had heard about this place called Crowder Lake. And Crowder Lake is actually over by Weatherford. And I had heard stories about a couple guys fishing there at night and having rocks thrown at them and limbs thrown at them, and it scared them so bad they walked out of there or got out of there in a hurry. And I'd also heard a story of a guy that had went behind Crowder Lake and he had a Jeep, and he got his Jeep stuck in the creek back there. And so he went to get help to get him out of the creek, and when he come back, his Jeep was tipped over. So I told my son, I said, let's go check out this lake. It's a small lake, let's just go see if it's possible that something could be here. And this was it was in the afternoon, and we go out to the lake, and I'm looking around. And the funny thing is, when you go out to this place, it's all farmland. There's no trees, no brush, no thickets, no nothing. It's straight farmland. But when you actually get to the lake itself, it's like in a canyon. And all around this lake is trees and brush and thickets. So I was going there. I thought, man, there's no way. There's no way there's anything out here. So when I finally get there, I thought, well, maybe I should think this over a little bit more. And so I got out of the truck, and he got out of the truck with me, and we started looking around. And we didn't see anything. I checked several of the trash cans because I've always heard that you look around the cans, you look around the dumpsters, and sometimes, if you're lucky, you'll run across a greasy handprint or something like that on them. So I checked all those out, didn't find anything, didn't see anything, looked for tracks, didn't find no tracks, and we decided that we were going to take a walk down toward the edge of the lake. And there's brush down there that's probably 4 or 5 feet tall. And as we're walking to the lake, we start hearing this rooster crowing. And keep in mind, there is not a farm anywhere near this lake. And my son looks at me, and he said, Dad, is that a rooster? And I said, well, it kind of sounds like a rooster, but I don't think that's a rooster. And this thing, it went on for probably a minute or two, and we turned around and started heading back up to where we were parked, and it stopped. I don't know what it was. I can't confirm what I think it was, but I don't think it was a rooster. But we get back to our vehicles, and I'm sitting there, and we're kind of in the park area, and I notice there's 2 travel trailers sitting there. Nobody's there. This lake is actually owned by the school over there in Weatherford, and so I thought, well, maybe that's some people from campus or something that come out here on every now and then to fish or whatever. And so I got to looking at those campers, and there was a tree line about probably 10 yards behind the campers. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna go back here where this tree line is and see if I can find anything. And I walk behind the campers and get back there where the tree line is, and there's a great big cottonwood tree there. And at the base of this cottonwood tree is a 15-inch track that's facing directly at the campers.
Wow.
And my son says, "Dad, come here." And I walked over to him, and he found another track, same size track. The one I found was right foot. The one he found was left foot.
Wow.
And I was such a proud father. I thought, oh, my gosh, my son is really into this, you know. So anyway, after we took pictures of that, I decided to go to Purgatory. I'd never been. He had never been. And we're driving to Purgatory and going through there. And
how in the world did it ever get that name? Purgatory. Was that named by the outlaws, or
no? That name actually came from the townspeople.
Okay.
The townspeople gave it that name because it has had such a long history, not necessarily of Bigfoot, but back in the Dust Bowl days, people would be driving out to California, and they wouldn't take 66. They would take some of these side roads, and a lot of times, I don't know whether it be outlaws or Indians or whatever, but there was a lot of people that disappeared in this stretch of road. And you've been out there, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember seeing the concrete building on the side of the hill there?
You know, it has been a long time, and I'm hoping that I have been. I know I used to hang out with the outlaws a lot, and right. There was several times that they took me places, and I'm almost sure they took me to Purgatory, but I could be wrong. I might be thinking of another area, but I don't recall a concrete building. But go ahead.
Well, there's a concrete building out there. It's kind of small. It kind of looks like a cellar, an above-the-ground cellar. And I was told that was at one time it was a jail. And back in
I know what you're talking about now. Okay.
Okay, and there's a great big cottonwood tree right there on top of it that people claim that was the hanging tree. They would arrest outlaws or people they suspected of doing some kind of wrong, whether it be robbery or killing people or whatever, and they would stick them in this building, and they would hold court or whatever, and if found guilty, they would hang them from this tree that's right there. So that's the stories that I've heard about it, and supposedly that's where the name kind of comes from, because there's bad blood, there's bad blood there.
And bad mojo there.
Exactly. And so we, me and my son this day, I'm driving through there, and I really felt uncomfortable. I felt like I was being watched the whole time I was going through there. I never saw anything.
And this was during the day, even.
This is during the day even. And I did find, I don't never trespass on somebody's land. So basically, when I go down to Purgatory, I stay on the road. I don't jump a fence, or I don't do that kind of stuff, because I don't believe in doing that. So, but I did see, as we're driving through there, I started seeing an X formation here, an X formation there, seeing tree breaks that are 10 feet up in the tree. It just really, my son looked at me and he says, "Dad, I don't feel right. We need to get out of here." And my son picked up on it. I picked up on it, and I told him, I said, "Okay, I said, once we get up here to where we can turn around, we're going to leave. And I've been back there.
It is a narrow little old dirt road going through there, isn't it?
Purgatory it is.
Dirt road, isn't it? Yeah.
You've got 40-foot tall cliffs on both sides of it because they actually dynamited the cliff to make the road go through there. And that's kind of a strange feeling in itself because the thing that goes through my mind, that there could be a Bigfoot on top of that cliff getting ready to throw a big rock on top of my truck as I'm driving down through there.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing like that's ever happened. I've been there quite a few times. We've heard wood knocks out there. I took a party of people out there before, and one of the girls that was in the group said that she heard something walking around on top of the cliff. And we've heard whoops out there. One time we were out there, and me and another guy, and we found a trackway that went for about 3/4 of a mile. There were 17-inch tracks, and you could see the mid-tarsal break in the print. The toes were pretty well defined. 17 inches long, and there was 3 feet 8 inches in between each step.
Wow.
And these went down the dirt road for about 3/4 of a mile before they actually went back into the wood line. And, that whole area down there is got tons of history. I've even heard reports that particular county, between Binger, Oklahoma, and I think it's Anadarko. I think I'm right. Between Binger and Anadarko, that stretch of highway that goes down there, in a 3-month time span, in 1 year they recorded over 200 sightings and encounters down there. So it's a very active spot.
Yes. Have you ever been there at night?
No. I have not.
Not for the lighthearted.
I found out who owned the land there, and I'm trying to get in touch with those people. What I would like to do is I would like to camp out there. I think that would be.
Sleep.
I think that would be one heck of an experience. But I don't know if you know this, but over a period of probably 150 to 200 years, there's been over 35 cases of missing people.
In that area?
In that area. And a lot of it, are you familiar with Sawyer Lake? It's right there in that same vicinity.
Isn't that the one where people go swimming and never come back? Is that the one?
Yes.
There's
a lot.
Good swimmers, and they just disappear. I mean, I think maybe giant catfish eat them. I don't know. It's just very strange. And there was a story about a school for girls, that they were having issues with students coming up missing. This was an Indian school for girls way back.
Right.
That's another story. I don't know if you've ever heard that one, but it's very historic. Let me tell you something very quickly. Over here in Angelina National Forest, in one of my favorite research areas, there is the place has a very heavy feeling most of the time, and I really didn't understand. I wanted to understand the history. Well, I found out that the Haines Indians were there, and that's where they lived, all up and down the Neches River, and they were notorious for, if they captured a Spaniard or somebody who was trying to make war with them or trespassed, they cannibalized them. And it was this ritual, and they cannibalized them, and they were known cannibals. And in 1865, I think it was, 1865, the whole all the tribes were rounded up, and guess where they were moved to? Binger, Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say.
Yep, Binger, Oklahoma. Now, you know, I've noticed a lot of similarities on the amount of activity in this area that I research and all the activity in Binger, around Binger. You know, I just think there's some kind of connection there, but I haven't quite put a finger on what it is.
Well,
anyway.
I do know this. There are a lot of, you know, I've talked to a lot of the Cheyenne and Arapaho, and there's this feeling that these things are part of a lost tribe. I don't know that. That is just part of their beliefs, and you know, I have heard that. I don't know what they are. All I know is that I'm hooked, and I want to know more, and that's why I go out. You know, I want to find out what's going on.
Exactly. I feel the same way. I don't know what they are either, but you know, every time I begin to think that they're human, which, you know, DNA has proved they're human. If you want to accept any of the DNA evidence that's been submitted, they do have a lot of human in them. But I don't really know what they are because they seem to be too advanced to be an animal and almost too advanced to be a human being. I mean, they could do things out there that we couldn't even think about doing, just like detecting the IR on your camera.
There is a...
There's no way we could do that. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And, you know, just recently I've gotten into contact with a research group up in Washington State, and, you know, on a weekly basis I get to talk to these guys, and you know, I've become really good friends with them. And a couple nights ago I had the pleasure of, there's an archaeologist up there named Mitchell Townsend, and Mitchell, he does a lot of research around Mount St. Helens. And Mitchell actually found a stack of deer and elk bones on one side of Mount St. Helens, and what he noticed in these bones, there were teeth marks in them. And he has done a lot of research on what he found, and he's releasing a book. I think you can get it on Amazon. I can't remember the name of it right now, but I think if you type in his name, it'll come up. But I think Mitchell is on the verge of really doing some major announcements with what his findings and his scientific evidence is to what these are. And
wow.
I've listened to his seminar, and it's got a lot of teeth in what he's talking. And he says there's a reason why the DNA samples that have been sent off come back half primate and half human. And you know, I'm not going to blow everybody's mind by some kind of scientific research because I'm far from that. But I really do think that he's on the verge of doing some great stuff for the Bigfoot community in itself. And
awesome.
Anyway, I'm
excited to hear about that. Mitchell Townsend?
Yes. And his book, I think his book was just released on Amazon 2 days ago. He's been on Coast to Coast AM talking about the bones that he found, and he had a couple of students in one of his classes that actually found another pile of bones on another side of Mount St. Helens that had the same kind of traits as the ones that he had found. So pretty interesting research that he's doing up there. But anyway,
we have about 5 minutes left. You want to tell us a little bit about your radio show?
Okay.
Radio show, or how does it go?
I'll give you an update on the radio show. A couple weeks before Christmas, I was told that the radio show was going to be down the radio station was going to be down for a while because they were innovating new equipment, new soundboards, and all that kind of stuff. And they were going to let us know once they had all that complete, and we were going to come back on the air and start doing more shows. I've had some really good guests on the show. I had MK Davis was on one of my shows, who does a lot of stuff. He's done a lot of work with the Patty film.
Oh, yeah.
I've had Brenda Harris from New Mexico. Yeah. She's been on the show. Had a lot of good guests and good people on the show, and I've got a lot of other people lined up. But the thing about it is, I haven't heard from the radio show at all. Here we are in the month, fixing to be in the month of March, and I've been told, rumor has it, that they lost their funding for the radio station.
Oh no!
So I am looking at other avenues to get the show back on, because I've had quite a few listeners who are interested in the show, and we're going to try to do a little experimentation tomorrow night with a guy from Washington who's going to talk about his encounter, and he and his wife's encounter. He actually thought one was fixing to kill his wife, and I've become really good friends with him, and he wants to come on the show. So we're going to do a little experimentation tomorrow, and I'm going to see if I can get that on YouTube sometime within the next couple of days, his encounter, his story. But we're looking at other avenues, because if the radio station has lost its funds, I'm kind of stuck out in the blankness, so to speak. So.
And you can't let your listeners down. You can't let them down.
No, I've got some pretty good listeners and pretty good supporters, and I've always had the mindset, and I still to this day, it's not about me. I don't want it to be about me. What I want it to be is to get the truth out there, and I've always been, the three pillars that I try to live by is integrity, honesty, and truthfulness. And what I found, I'm going to share with the public. I don't like hoaxers. I hate hoaxers. I think that's given the Bigfoot community bad blood for everybody.
And a big black eye. Mm-hmm.
And I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I've actually been accused of it by another research group, and that is something that I despise. I don't like people that do it. The guys that are walking around in the woods with wooden feet on the bottom of their shoes, they are to be shot, because they're making it hard. They're making it hard for us who are out there doing the actual research. So,
that's right.
Any questions for me?
Yes.
I got
Ricky,
one.
do you have any questions? I knew you would. Go ahead, Rick.
Men, earlier I heard you talking about wanting to go camping at some place. I can't remember the name.
Purgatory.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh crap! I'm sorry.
In Oklahoma,
I couldn't do it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Since we're in Oklahoma, if you get permission to go out there, I'd really like to go, man.
Okay. All right.
I will make a trip.
Okay.
Also, there's since you're kind of in our area, do you know where Hobart is? Hobart, Oklahoma?
Yes, I've heard of it. I've never been there, actually.
Well, kind of south and west of Hobart, there's Lugert Lake, and there's also a place around there called Devil's Canyon.
Right.
And there's old tales of old Mexican gold sitting back in there, and I haven't heard any Bigfoot stories, but I've never camped in there, and I'm going to tell you, man, it's a long ways in, and it is really a canyon. There's mountains on all sides of you except where you go in, and the place that you go in, you have to walk through. It was a kind of like a crazy house back in the 20s and 30s, and one of the tenants ended up burning it to the ground. And
wow.
It's kind of eerie walking in there, but if you'd like to walk through there, man, that'd be awesome to walk in.
Is this kind of southwest of Tulsa?
No.
Oh, no. This is southwest Oklahoma. I mean, this is like 20 miles north of Altus.
Oh, okay. All right. There have been reports down there in the mountains in that area of sightings.
Mhm.
Wow.
Well, man, I know we're getting crunched for time, but I'm serious. If you get permission to go on someplace, since we're this close to each other, man, I've never been on anything like that. I like camping in the woods. That's all I go out for.
He does, seriously.
I'm the skeptic. I'm the one that says it might be there. I've never seen nothing until there's proof. It's not real, but I'm open-minded.
I tell you what, I could take you to a place where I could almost guarantee you I'd change your mind. Or I wouldn't change your mind. They would change your mind.
You say when, and I promise I'll be there.
Well, I'm going to have to get your number. You know, you might give me your number after the show, and I'll give you a holler for sure, Rick.
Awesome.
I've got your number, Chuck, and I'll make sure you get his number. So we're good.
That sounds good.
Everybody's number. I used to camp out all the time on North Fork of the Red River, and I'd camp out there with my sister 5 miles from anybody, and we would just sit out there and drink and fish and camp out and in our bathing suits sometimes, and I just can't even imagine that something like that would have been running around, and we were, too far from our car. We've been cut off from our car, and I mean, you could hear if somebody was driving down there, but I just can't even imagine that there could have been something in this area, because a lot of the times the places that we camped was not that far from where Devil's Canyon is. So,
I could tell you a real quick story that happened to me about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
There's a place, we call it our hot spot, and it's in, I'm not going to mention the name of where it's at, but it's in northwestern Oklahoma. And we've had several encounters there. I had a horse apple thrown at me while walking down the trail, and I reached down and picked it up, and when I turned it over, there was a great big bite mark out of it. I actually have it in my freezer. I've saved it. But 2 weeks ago when we were there, me and my partner, we were walking down a trail, and we thought we spotted something that was standing about 10 feet tall, and we have actually found a track there that was 23 inches long.
Wow.
Biggest track we've ever found. And the big toe of the track was the size of 3 of my fingers put together. And it was massive. And we found little tracks all over the place. This is a real hotbed area. And we were walking down this trail, and we thought we saw something. Was standing about 10 feet tall. So I snapped some real quick pictures of it. And, of course, cameras are hard. It's really hard to get a good picture.
It is.
But we went on down the trail a ways, and when we come back, not only was what we had seen not there, but there was a big branch that was laid across the trail that we had just went down. And it wasn't there before.
That has happened here. That I've had that happen to me too. Come back and there's a tree bough over the trail, or a tree that's just bent over and laid across the trail, but it's still attached, but it's been bent where it lay across the trail where you have to lift it up and go under it, But it was like, now I know that wasn't there before.
Yep.
And
I've found a lot of that stuff.
Wow. You're in a good area when you run across a sign like that. Yes,
you are.
Chuck, you were awesome. I would love to have you back on again.
I'd love to be back on. I've got quite a few more stories.
I bet you do. And you know what's exciting is because I've been to some of the places that you were talking about, and and it just brings back memories. I have such wonderful, exciting adventures in these areas in Oklahoma, and so I appreciate you very much taking me down memory lane.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed it. And anytime you want me back on, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to come back on the show. So
okay, and I will make sure that you guys get each other's digits. And I want to say something else. If you get a radio show back up and going, let me know, and we'll let everyone know where you're at. Okay?
Okay. I think what we're going to do is actually put it on our YouTube channel. We're going to try that and see if it works. And if it works, that's probably the way we're going to do things for a little while until I can get set up to do a really good show. So.
Okay. Well, just let us know. We can still send people that way.
Sounds good.
We have a lot of listeners that I'm sure they've enjoyed this show and they wouldn't mind coming and listening. So just let us know.
Okay,
and
sure will.
I guess we better say goodnight before they decide to shut us off. They let us free stream for just a little while, and then they just say, bye.
Okay,
So,
Lori, Lauren, Rick, it's been a pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Yes,
appreciate
it, man.
It's been our pleasure. Yes. Well, say good night, everybody.
All right,
Adios.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to Nite Bigfoot Radio.